Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. Tropical storm Dorian barrels toward Puerto Rico. Will that poor island be once again struck with a major storm? They haven't recovered yet. And we're also going to talk today about the fact of the currency inversion. The 30-year Treasury has gone below 2% for the first time in my recollection, and the 10-year is under 5%. Actually, it's like 1.5% now. So what does this mean for you? Is it time to load up and sell some debt or refinance? We're going to talk about all those things on this program. The storm shows the frightening path of this storm coming. Here's Shirley and Aaron.
Tropical storm Dorian wreaked havoc in parts of the Caribbean, flooding streets and downing power lines. The storm is gaining strength and is now heading to Puerto Rico and could become a hurricane before it hits later today.
The risks here will be quite high here in the Virgin Islands and eastern Puerto Rico. Again, up to 8 inches of rain, a significant storm surge, and winds could gust 60 to 80 miles an hour.
People on the island making final preparations.
Just to have enough water and canned food.
The island nation is still recovering from Hurricane Maria nearly 2 years ago and is now bracing for another hit.
I think FEMA took a very aggressive stance for Dorian. It is the first system of the year, and we understand that the island is still very fragile.
A team of firefighters from Florida dispatched to Puerto Rico ahead of Dorian to aid in rescue and recovery.
We're going to be there before the storm hits, so we'll get a little familiarized with the area that we'll be responsible for. We'll weather the storm where our base of operation will be located.
Heavy rains and power outages expected to be the worst, especially for those still living in damaged houses. As many as 30,000 homes still with blue plastic tarps as roofs. As CBN News saw firsthand after Maria, churches also play a big role in aid and rebuilding efforts.
The first responders were really not the government. It was the churches, it was young pastors, young church planters, all over the place, just working together.
CBN's Operation Blessing was also on the ground after Maria, distributing water filters in community centers all over the island. After it clears Puerto Rico, Dorian heads for the Dominican Republic and is posing a threat to the U.S. coast.
Indications are this will turn to the west, and this could be a significant threat to the southeast coast of the U.S. and in particular Florida over the holiday weekend. And you can see there is potential for strengthening.
We're looking at the opposite type of year this year. Even though overall activity, the total what we call ACE index, may be down, the impact from these storms that get in close to the United States are still something that's formidable.
So far, it's been a slow hurricane season, but as we enter the time of peak activity, NOAA is upping its forecast, predicting 2 to 4 major hurricanes. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. I want to point out Operation Blessing has been on the scene in Puerto Rico, helping people with tarps and reconstruction and also supplies, water and food and so forth. They're still down there, still working, and they want to help people where needed. And so if you want to help Operation Blessing, here's the address. It's Operation Blessing Disaster Relief, CBN. It's 1-800-700-7000, and people really appreciate it. As I mentioned at the start of the show, there's been a historic move in the treasuries. It usually presages a recession, and an inverted yield curve is when people pay more money for short-term debt than they do for long year. But for 30-year treasury bonds, they hit an all-time low, selling for under $2%, which is unprecedented. And what does this mean for everybody? Well, what can it be done? John Jessup has more.
Well, Pat, Wall Street is already reacting after the 30-year bond yield dropped to 1.907 early this morning, hitting an all-time low. and the yield on 10-year Treasuries stayed below the yield on 2-year Treasuries, prolonging an inverted yield curve, which is said to predict economic downturns. An inverted yield curve has preceded the last 5 recessions. Some economists say there's still time to avert a crisis if the United States, Pat, and China can end their trade war.
I don't know that that's going to have any effect on it, but it's unbelievable. For the experts who talk to us say that this is something that is going to last for quite some time. And for you personally, what a great time to borrow money. What a great time to refinance your home. What a great time for a business to take on some debt. If you can get a long-term debt at 2% or 3%, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And so I think people are scrambling to see, can they access the debt market? I think this thing will stay along for a while, but it does presage, as I said, a potential recession. But at the same time, the price of gold has gone up dramatically, and I think that, well, you ought to look at the possibility of refinancing your house if you can to take advantage of this at lower rates. Very, very important. John?
Pat, the maker of the powerful prescription painkiller OxyContin, is looking to settle thousands of lawsuits related to the opioid epidemic. Purdue Pharma and its owners, the Sackler family, reportedly are offering $10 to $12 billion to settle more than 2,000 suits with state and local governments. The suits argue Purdue Pharma's aggressive marketing campaign helped fuel an opioid crisis that kills tens of thousands of Americans every year. In a deposition recently made public, former Purdue Pharma chairman and president Dr. Richard Sackler confirmed the power of OxyContin, but denied the misleading nature of the marketing campaign.
Do you know whether OxyContin is more powerful or less powerful a drug than morphine?
Depends what you mean by powerful. If powerful means potency, absolutely. It is twice as potent as morphine. There is no way that this intended or had the effect of causing physicians to overlook the fact that it was twice as potent. It was called out in virtually every promotional piece of literature.
And Pat, the settlement would bankrupt Purdue Pharma, and as part of the reorganization, the Sackler family would give up its ownership.
Well, that's just a part of the tip of the iceberg. I hope that the states cracked down. There was a big settlement against Johnson & Johnson. They were just minor players considering Purdue Pharma, which is the height of it. And the Sacklers sold that stuff as aggressively as you can imagine, and they have resulted in the deaths of thousands of people. And there's some of the big companies that are yet to be called to account, and the damages will be in the billions of dollars. And I hope that Justice Department gets on board and that the police departments get on board and all the way across the line, that whatever's needed to call these people into account, because they flooded these tiny little towns, these places down in Florida, for example, tiny little communities with a few thousand people have gotten tens of thousands of these oxycodone pills, and they are terribly addictive, and people are dying around the country because of it. And these people are clearly responsible. And if the Sacklers lose all of their money, good for them. John?
Pat, police are investigating possible drug use in a high-speed crash that killed 2 children in Dayton, Ohio. This video captures the whole thing. The suspect stealing a police cruiser and fleeing at high speeds in reverse. Despite being tased by a police officer, the suspect escaped, striking several cars, his speeds reaching up to 100 miles an hour before crashing into a van with 7 children inside. 2 of those kids died. Officers were not pursuing the suspect at the time of the crash. Police say the incident started when the suspect allegedly stabbed his father after learning he was being taken to a mental health facility. Well, turning to the immigration crisis, the Trump administration is working with Central American countries to stem the flow of migrants heading to the United States. Recently, acting DHS Secretary Kevin McAleenan visited one country where the policy of intervention seems to be paying off. Chuck Holton reports from Panama.
A photo op at the Panama Canal.
As the acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kevin McAleenan, visits the Latin American nation, hoping to increase cooperation between the U.S. and the new Panamanian president, Laurentino Cortizo. McAleenan arrived in Panama with an agenda. The U.S. wanted Panama to become a safe third country and agreed to take in thousands of immigrants from around the world who are passing through here en route to the United States. But that's a tough sell. There are already hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans and Colombians who came here to take advantage of the highest per capita income in Central America. And Panama is struggling to cope. They've seen more than 16,000 migrants enter their country through the Dorian Gap this year alone. But McAleenan made it clear that wasn't the only reason for his visit. Combating drug and human smuggling was also high on his list.
This is a regional challenge. The organizations and the criminal activity we're trying to confront crosses borders. It doesn't respect our national sovereignty, and the only way to address that effectively is by working together, not just for information sharing, as Minister Rivas pointed out, but for concrete operational actions, investigations, and interdictions.
During his 3 days on the ground, McAleenan also visited a camp in the Darién jungle called Las Penitas, where the U.S. Border Patrol has agents registering biometric data on each migrant. Hundreds from around the world are languishing in legal limbo here as Panama tries to determine the best way to move them out of their country. The daily bus service that was carrying them to Costa Rica has been suspended, with no word yet on when it will resume. This uncertainty has made some migrants rethink their plans to seek asylum in the U.S.
Actually, my destination is not the U.S. My destination is a safe havens where I can have peace and I can do something to help my family back home.
Many of the migrants who come through here that need medical attention end up at the hospital here in Metatí because it's the closest one to the migrant camp. But this place is already overstressed, and it doesn't have enough medical supplies even for the people who live here. And so the huge number of migrants is causing some friction between the residents and these migrants coming through the jungle. And the new government is working hard to come up with an acceptable solution.
This is about illegal trafficking, and we have to put a stop to it. Panama accepts its regional responsibility, but we have to stop it. We do not want those people to come through here. And it's not because we don't want to address the humanitarian crisis. It's because allowing these people to come through here is sponsoring criminals.
With help from U.S. intelligence, Panama recently broke up a major smuggling ring based in Costa Rica that was charging these migrants up to $20,000 each to transport them from Africa to the United States. This proves they're serious about addressing the problem. But with hundreds more making the dangerous trek north through the jungle every week, it's clear to everyone there's much more work to do. From Panama, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Pat, Chuck's story shows the far-reaching impact of the immigration crisis.
Unbelievable when you've got people from Africa coming in through Panama. Unreal. But it is a crisis, and we've got to deal with it.